Chapter 23, Marcia Wants You. When Mrs. King offered to accompany the children to school, Sade assured her that they'd be fine on their own. Neither child spoke as they walked, except when Sade said goodbye outside Greenslade's high wire fencing. Femi did not even turn around to look at her, and she felt hurt. Her nightmare had made her unsure about defying Marcia. But now that she had done the homework, at least if she saw everyone else handing theirs in, she could hand hers in too. On the other hand, if all the rest of the class hadn't actually done it, she needn't admit that she had. It certainly wouldn't do to stand out as the goody-goody. A red double-decker bus hurtled past with Avon students clustered on the platform, ready to get out at the next stop. Sade levered her scarf higher up on her neck. The wind was bitingly cold. It felt as if wings with frozen feathers were being brushed against her cheeks. At the main gate, she joined a stream of students tramping up the drive. Mariam had said they were allowed to go to their tutor room first thing in the morning, as Mr. Morris was often in early. But what if he asked her about her homework before their English lesson? She wouldn't know if the others had done the work or not. She slowed her pace in spite of the cold. With her head bent down as she approached the entrance doors, Sade first saw the black tights and stacked shoes that blocked her way. Looking up, she found herself staring directly at the black, sternly ferns around Donna's blue pool eyes. Marcia wants you. Before Sade could say anything, her arms were linked together and she was being marched away from the entrance towards the far end of the building. Around the corner was a covered area under which Marcia and a gang huddled between a couple of concrete pillars. Kevin was there as another boy she didn't recognise, and the two girls from the cloakroom. Kevin took a couple of quick puffs at a cigarette stub, then passed it on to one of the girls. "You made us stay out in the cold. Did it on purpose, didn't you?" said Marcia. "You knew we'd be waiting for you, right?" Sade didn't reply. She was their captive, but they couldn't make her speak. "Thought you said you taught her about manners. Hey, Marcia," the second boy sneered. "Well, have you done your English then?" Marcia jutted her chin out towards Sade as Donna yanked the rucksack off her shoulder. The two boys jumped forward to help, and Sade stared helplessly as they pulled at the clips. Within seconds, her English book lay open in Marcia's hands. She flicked over the pages. "Neat writing, 5 pages. Ooh, won't Mr. Morris be pleased?" Marcia oozed sarcasm. The others laughed and her tone switched. "You reckoned I wasn't serious, right? Well, let me tell you, girl, I mean what I say. When I said no one was going to do that homework without my say-so, I was talking about you." With a flourish, Marcia ripped out the first 2 pages in Sade's book. "You are no one. Get it? No one." Sade watched the neat lines of her handwriting crumple as Marcia squashed the pages into a tight ball. Marcia bounced it up in the air a couple of times before flinging it away carelessly onto the tarmac. Sade's eyes tingled and she fought to hold back her tears. That's what they were waiting for. Bending down, she fiddled with the clips on her rucksack. "Lost your tongue, have you? Well, you better keep it lost. I haven't finished with you. Do you hear?" Sade didn't reply to Marcia. All she wanted was to get away from the prying eyes and to retrieve the ball of paper being rolled across the tarmac by the wind. If she went after it, one of Marcia's gang was sure to grab it back. The bell saved her, drawing attention away from her and starting new chatter. "See you around, Sade. Donald giggled as the group ambled off towards the front of school. As soon as they disappeared around the corner, Sade ran to scoop up the ball of paper. She was shaking. How could she face going into the class now? If it wasn't so cold, she'd have been tempted to slip out of the school gates, but she didn't fancy wandering around on the streets in this weather. Anyway, wouldn't people wonder what a child in uniform was doing not in school? Nor could she go back to the Kings without explaining what had happened. Perhaps Aunt Gracie would want to come to school to complain. Life with Marcia would surely become even worse if Sade got her into trouble. Without opening the scrunched up paper, Sade stuffed it into her bag. Reluctantly, she followed in the footsteps of Marcia's gang back into the main entrance. Her shoes clattered in the silence of the empty hallway as she hurried towards the corridor and the stairs. She was late. From the top of the stairs, she could see that 8M's door was shut and that she was going to have to enter the classroom in full view of everyone again. Mr. Morris frowned, but his brow seemed to relax a little when he saw who it was. "Have you been lost?" he asked. Sade didn't want to lie. Instead, she nervously bit her lip, and Mr. Morris didn't pursue his question. "Go and sit down. You'll soon find your way around," he said tolerantly. "Teacher's pet," Donna whispered loudly as Sade approached her seat. Sade avoided looking directly at anyone, including Mariam. A little later, when Mr. Morris called for the English homework to be handed in, Donna offered to collect the books. "That's a pleasant change. Thank you, Donna." Mr. Morris sounded pleased. Grinning, Marcia's friend strode over to the other end of the room so that their own column of desks would be the last. Sade hung down her head, waiting. She was aware of the other students taking out their books, and she ignored Mariam's nudgings to do the same. She knew what was going to happen. Donna arrived and stuck out the palm in front of Sade's face. When Sade didn't respond, she called out, "Sir, the new girl hasn't done it, sir. Maybe she doesn't understand English properly, sir." "There's no need to shout, Donna. Just collect the rest, thank you," replied Mr. Morris. The chattering around the classroom suddenly quietened as Sade sensed that the teacher was walking over to her desk. "I'm disappointed. I was looking forward to reading your work. What happened?" His voice was low and calm. When Papa or one of her teachers spoke to her like that, it always touched her more than if they shouted. Her tongue felt as heavy as Grandma's old-fashioned iron. Her head remained lowered. "Well, make sure you hand it in tomorrow then. I expect everything is still rather new to you," Mr. Morris said quietly. "You wouldn't let me get away with that, would you, sir? I did get a detention. Is it because she's a girl, sir?" Sade recognised Kevin's whine. "No, stupid," Marcia hissed. "It's because she's African, sir. Well, sir wouldn't let me get away with it either." As Mr. Morris brought the class to quiet, Sade felt Mariam's fingers press lightly on her arm. She flinched, curling inwards. She felt as scrunched up as a handwriting on the ball of paper that Marcia had flung so carelessly into the wind. But what could you do when you were up against people who told powerful lies?